The shed we are installing in this video is a 5 foot by 6 foot premium garden metal shed. This shed requires 2 people for assembly and should be constructed on a dry, calm day. Make sure to wear protective gloves where possible and to take regular breaks. Before installing your new metal shed, you want to make sure you have an appropriate base. For this, we are using solid concrete. For this specific shed, you will need an area at least 160 centimeters by 185 centimeters. Check all parts against the part list before beginning construction and identify each component. Each component will all feature part numbers on them for easy identification. You may wish to remove all of the washers from their grids before you start. There is a plastic coating on the majority of the shed components to protect it during transport. This should be removed before construction as it can be tough to remove later. Using your instructions, refer to the parts needed for the base frame installation and identify the required pieces. For this construction, you will also need the following tools: a Phillips drive screwdriver, tape measure, square and a spirit level. Lay the base as shown in the instructions and begin by securing the rear, left and right corners. Use 2 F1 screws to secure both corners. Once secure, move on to the front 2 corners and attach them to the base. Finally moving on to the middle and final piece of the base and attach them using the remaining screw holes. At this stage, you want to make sure that your shed is in the correct position on your base, as well as making sure that all the corners are square across the angles. This can be achieved with a square or using a tape measure and spirit level. Once you're completely satisfied, proceed to mark the holes with a pencil onto the concrete below. Next, move the frame carefully out of the way and proceed to drive into the concrete below at each marked point. Insert plugs into each hole and secure down using screws. Using your instructions, refer to the parts needed for the wall assembly and identify the required pieces. As per the instructions, connect 4R and 13 to the base using F1 screws provided. Next, attach P9 to either side and secure with more F1 screws. Attach P1 to the frame and secure as shown in the instructions using the F1 screws. Ensure to only screw the bottom 2 screws in P1 and P9. Using your instructions, refer to the parts needed for the support assembly and identify the required pieces. Take length 22 and position. Secure in place using F1 screws and S3 washers. Place piece 13 into the corner position as before and secure to piece P1. Using your instructions, refer to the parts needed for the rear wall assembly and identify the required pieces. Secure P2 to 13 as shown using F1 screws. Connect piece 22 to P2 as before to add structure to the rear wall. Once secure, take length 23 and secure in place using F1 screws and S3 washers. Now take P2 and secure in place using the screws and washers. Repeat this process and attach P2 to length 23. The remaining sides of the metal shed are symmetrical, so please follow the same instruction as before and refer to them for accurate part list. Please refer to the parts needed for the wall assembly and identify the required pieces. Take piece P1 and secure it to the top of the shed as demonstrated. Screw in place using 3 F1 screws and then take length 9 and position as shown, then secure to the frame and screw in place. This will add structure. Be sure to only screw in the 2 rows in panel P2. Once complete, attach 6 times P9 panels. Make sure the overhang lands on the outside and screw in place using F1 screws and S3 washers. Apply the remaining P1 panels to both left and right sides. Ensure the overhang sits outside the lip as well. Once secure in place, attach 6 times P2 panels to the back of the shed. Secure in place using F1 screws and S3 washers. For safety, we have included plastic screw caps to ensure no loose screw points are left exposed. Please place on top of the exposed screw as shown. Using your instructions, refer to the parts needed for the gable end assembly and identify the required pieces. You will also need a pair of pliers for this section. Place parts loosely together and thread an F2 bolt into the top hole of 14L as shown. Hand tighten the nut to secure into place. Using a pair of pliers, tighten the bolt. Repeat this process on the lower hole. However, before feeding the F2 bolt through the 14R, add part 12 as demonstrated, then continue to secure with the bolt provided. Insert both air vents and secure in place with the screws. Position length 20 across the back. Then guide the triangular panel into position to secure into place using the F1 screws and S3 washers. Consult the diagram to ensure correct installation. Position 7L and 7R on the second triangle construction as seen here. Position length 6 and secure into place using the F1 screws and S3 washers. Insert 4 times G2. Finally secure the frame following the diagram for correct position and using F1 screws and the S3 washers. Position length 16 as shown, using a ladder secure in place using the F2 nuts and bolts. Using your instructions, refer to the parts needed for the external covers and identify the required pieces. Attach one length 37 to each side of the door and secure into place using 5 times F1 screws and S3 washers per length. Next secure a 36 length to each cover using 5 times F1 screws and S3 washers as demonstrated. Finally secure the 35 length using 5 times F1 screws and S3 washers. Using your instructions, refer to the parts needed for the roof assembly and identify the required pieces. Secure roof panels P5 and P6 using a ladder to secure F1 screws and S3 washers. Secure 2 times P7 panels as shown, secure into place using the screws and washers. Position and secure 2 times P4 roof panels into place using F1 screws and S3 washers. And finally, secure the final 2 roof panels P5 and P6 to the shed, using F1 screws and S3 washers. Using your instructions, refer to the parts needed for the roof covers and identify the required pieces. Position 4 times length 17 and 19 as seen here. Secure at each end using 2 times GE, F1 screws and S3 washers. Follow diagrams for the correct positioning. This is for both the front and the back of the shed. Using your instructions, refer to the parts needed for the roof gutter and identify the required pieces. Attach 2 times GS to each length 10 as shown and secure in place using F1 screws and S3 washers. Position and secure 2 times length 10. Secure into place using 4 times GC, F1 screws and S3 washers. Using your instructions, refer to the parts needed for the doors and identify the required pieces. Attach 1 times GB to D1 and D2 as shown. Secure in place using F2 nuts and bolts. Next, slide 3 lengths of 18 to each door and secure using F1 screws. Now secure further as shown using F2 nuts and bolts. Finally secure 4 times GD to the door as seen here. Secure using F2 nuts and bolts. Secure the door into place as demonstrated using the F3 screws. If the door doesn't run smoothly, you can apply a standard household lubricant and wipe away any excess. Using your instructions, refer to the parts needed for the floor foundation kit and identify the required pieces. Assemble the floor foundation kit as shown. Secured together using F1 screws. Please note this has been put together outside of the shed for demonstration purposes. Please assemble inside shed. Secure the foundation kit together using F1 screws as seen here. Once you have finished installing your foundation kit, you will need to lay a floor over the base. We recommend a 9mm OSB board. Once you've secured the floor foundation kit, your new premium garden metal shed is complete. Thank you for watching this guide. If you require any further information, please do visit the website.